Welcome back to another episode of our weekly Moto News Roundup. It's a bit of a bumper episode this week because I was off last week. And so we got new bikes from BMW, ZXMOTO and Suzuki, along with bad news for the Yamaha R6, Ducati potentially up for sale, and a new, bigger rally model from KTM. Then we got developments from Zero, QJ Motor and BENDA, a bit of an unusual sidecar from Watsonian, a Panigale powered beast, and all the latest gear news from our friends at Sports Bike Shop. Then we've got our regular sections of comment, ride and custom of the week, and we'll round off with some new stealthy speed cameras to watch out for here in the UK, along with some new laws in Spain which could land you with a pretty significant fine. But before we get started, a massive thanks to Break Free for supporting the channel and sponsoring our news coverage. And if you've ever been at all curious about this particular safety product, then of course, as always, there are links down in the description below. But let's kick off with those BMW updates for their 2027 lineup, largely consisting, to be fair, of fairly minor shuffles in spec and changes to the accessories and stuff, and a couple of new paint jobs, like this one, to be fair, looks quite good for the R12G/S. One of the bikes that really did get a significant update though is their top of the line M1000RR Superbike, which gets a new frame. They're calling it the M Motorsport frame, which they also say has 30% thinner walls in some parts. The idea is to balance or better balance flex and stiffness, but also shave off a little bit of weight with 1.3 kilograms saved, so not an insignificant amount. So yeah, maybe a bit of a performance boost there, not that it really needed it, it was already right up there with the best. But I won't bore you with the rest of the changes. I mean, one example would be the S1000R Naked, which now gets the USB charging port included in the comfort pack if you select it. So look, if you're really into your BMWs, especially a specific model, maybe go and seek out yourself and have a little read. Perhaps a little more exciting though is the full lowdown on some new bikes from one of the most promising Chinese manufacturers, ZXMOTO. You see, this year they've taken 5 World Supersport victories with their 820RR, and so now a new upgraded version of that bike has just been announced for the road, along with a new naked on the same platform. This upgraded sports bike is called the 820RR, and to be fair, it does sound like a bit of a weapon with an 819cc inline triple that makes 145 horsepower up at 13,500 RPM, and I believe it goes on to redline at almost 15k. On top of that, weight looks good. It's 186 kilograms curb, partially owing to the fact that this one gets forged wheels, and then plenty of upgrades to the chassis like KYB suspension, a full Brembo braking system, a slightly wider rear tyre, and also Pirelli Diablo V4 tyres as standard. So yeah, it really does look the business, and in their home market in China, it retails for the equivalent, if you just currency convert it, of just 6,900 quid. Obviously, if they import it here, it's gonna come in quite a lot more than that. But all the same, you know, even with a couple of grand on top, it still would probably undercut any of the competition that can make anywhere near as much power or have anywhere near as good a spec. On top of that, they also announced this naked version called the 820R. It's a little down on power like the standard 820RR sports bike, but it still makes 135 horsepower peak. The components maybe not quite so premium, but this one comes in at a currency conversion of just 4,200. So again, even with a bit more on top, it could be a heck of a deal. I did report as well a couple of episodes back that there are plans to import ZXMOTO to the UK later this year. And so availability and pricing, hopefully on these two very tempting looking models, should be coming at some point in the next few months. Meanwhile, Suzuki are apparently about to relaunch the GIXXER 250, which would help them to plug a pretty significant gap in their lineup, running from the GIXXER 125 right up to the GSX 8R. You see, it's been about 5 years since it was available. It was discontinued back in 2021 owing to stricter emissions regulations. But we have known they've been working on a new version of their 250 single, which incorporates a variable valve system, so that could potentially help them to pass the latest current day regs. To be fair though, it isn't just emissions generations, they have put in a bit more power, so it now makes 28.8 horses, so that's up from, I think, 24-ish for the last generation. There's new AERO winglets, which realistically are just for fashion, but it does help to modernize the look a bit, and also an upgrade to the tech with a new TFT dash and also some Bluetooth connectivity. It's expected this month in China, because that's where it's produced, with it recently appearing there in some type approval documents, but potentially this one could be rolled out to the rest of the world later this year. In other sports bike news though, it looks as though Yamaha are about to kill off the legendary R6, with VYRUS reporting that they've just announced the final run of the track-only R6 race. They say it will be on sale in Japan only in February 2027, but only to customers who register in a sort of pre-registration 2-month period, which I believe is opening at some point this year. So potentially the end of an era. It was certainly a very, very, very popular bike when it was in its peak, but of course now part of the trend of moving away from those high-revving 600s, and more so towards this new breed of supersport, which of course includes their own inline triple-powered R9. Still, there is good news for Yamaha elsewhere, with them recently confirmed as the sole bike provider for the Moto3 Championship from 2028 onwards, with the new bike set to be built upon their very popular CP2 parallel twin platform. Now this will replace the current 250 singles, and so it should give a really significant performance boost, with them currently making about 60 horses, but it's expected the CP2, certainly in the race form anyway, could make around 90. The idea is, along with the bikes being a little bit physically bigger as well, it would help to smooth the transition for riders between the Moto3 Championship and Moto2. Meanwhile, it looks like Volkswagen could be about to put Ducati up for sale, with their dire financial situation forcing them to consider selling off some of their most profitable sub-brands, of which, Ducati is certainly one of them. Motorcycle journalist Ben Purvis reports for us that VW's share price is down to its lowest point since 2010, and they're believed to be considering shutting down 4 factories in Germany and also laying off around 15% of its workforce, which is the equivalent of around 100,000 jobs. So really drastic measures, which is naturally why they're considering selling off something like Ducati, which would maybe be a bit short-sighted, but also give them a pretty quick injection of cash. Now, it is largely rumours at the moment, but VW did put out a statement in the last couple of days, which really doesn't deny it at all. They say something like, all their brands and subsidiaries need to undergo a profound transformation, and so really it's certainly one to watch this space for. Over now though to KTM, and we've got a new spy shot from our regular source, which appears to show a new rally version of their 690 platform. I think he's removed the background here to keep the location secret, so that's why the picture looks a little bit weird, but you can still clearly make out some of the details, which do largely look pretty similar to the current 690 Enduro R. The big difference though is that instead of just having the under-seat fuel tank, there's actually a tank at the front as well, and so you've got fuel flowing through the whole body of the bike basically, which should give it enough fuel capacity to make it a bit more rally appropriate. Of course, the tank's going to give you a little bit more weather protection as well, but also it's got that slab-like tall rally front end with a bit of a windscreen that's also going to make it a touch more comfortable. Could be a heck of a bike, this one, and with this spy shot looking so close to being finished with it all stickered up and everything, well, maybe we can expect this one before the back end of the year. Anyway, let's rapid fire through a few more stories. There's so much to catch up on this week. Electric brand Zero just registered the name LS3 in the UK and Europe, and so it looks like it could be a new potential maxi scooter to sit above their current LS1, which is a rebadged version of a bike made by Chinese manufacturer Zhongsheng. QJ Motor, one of the other big Chinese brands, are also said to be working on active aerodynamics, with this pattern showing big swept-back wings on the side that apparently respond to the bike's IMU. Now, CF Moto have been making a massive song and dance recently of their new V4 sports bike, which is also said to incorporate some similar tech, and so it looks like maybe QJ are trying to keep pace with their SRK 1051RR. BENDA, on the other hand, are working on a 6-cylinder engine, somewhat similar to BMWs in the K1600 Tourer, but instead of making a direct copy, well, they're actually incorporating a mild hybrid system with a motor set above the transmission. It is quite a smart move though. It also acts as the starter motor, but then it can flip into reverse when the engine's running to act as the generator. But then yeah, it can also kick in to provide a bit of extra boost if there is a quick turn of the throttle. So not only good for emissions, for performance, for engine wear as well, but it also helps to simplify the engine's construction by combining those multiple functions. Now, a little closer to home, we've got what Sony and Sidecars recently showing off what I believe is their first ever electric, pairing one of their sidecars with Livewire's S2 Del Mar. And they say it was quite the technical task to hook it up. It needed this whole new subframe to be built to bridge around that big battery. But it does leave me wondering what a big old sidecar is going to do to the range of this bike, which already comes in at just 70 miles at motorway speeds. Then another slightly unusual build that caught my eye this week is this new bike from VYRUS called the ALYEN, which popped up on MCN, and I think it's fair to say it's a bit of a statement piece. VYRUS was founded 40 years ago by an ex-Moto engineer, and they've been building bikes with hub steering ever since, but this one apparently has been 9 years in the making. It's said they went through 57 design variants before landing on this one, with it being built around the 1299 Panigale's Super Quattro V-twin, so no pooch at all, with it making over 200 horsepower peak. Lots of interesting design points on this one, so do check out that full rundown on MCN's website. But the long and short of it is there are just 20 to be built, and MCN predict a price of over 100,000. Anyway, moving on, we've got a new segment this week in which I dialed in with Tony from Sports Bike Shop. If you've been watching their gear reports, you'll know he definitely knows his stuff. And so here we go with a bit of a roundup of what's new in his, particular realm. Thanks very much for joining us today, Tony. And I think we're going to kick off with the new Cardo Venture helmet, which we saw at ABR, but I'd just love to know your take on it, having, of course, reviewed probably many more helmets than me over the past few years.
Yeah, as you say, this is the Cardo Venture MX helmet, and Cardo are saying this is the first of its kind, so the first integrated comms helmet for off-roaders, and I can't find anything that suggests that they're wrong in that. This probably is the first, and they've based it on a Liat Moto 8.5 helmet, so it's a composite fibre helmet. It has been revised slightly because carbon fibre can interfere with communications and the clarity of the signal, so the carbon fibre parts have been relocated to try and avoid that. And then it's got a very similar pack talk type system to the mesh system that they make available for Shoeis and for HJCs, but with this it comes integrated into the helmet. You don't have to install it yourself, so it's a really competent, well respected motocross helmet. I think Liat have got a really good attitude to safety. So Cardo said when they developed this, one of the things they found that stopped off-roaders using comms was they were worried about having a bulky unit on the side, that it might snag on something or it might catch against things, so they've tried to keep it as sleek as possible on the side. Had a quick go with it with ABR, like I say, and was really impressed. Quite handy actually to be able to communicate with other people off-road. Never done that before, and just being able to have someone warn you about stuff that's coming up was really, really useful. So this one, they say, is coming in late summer. £695 including the comms. So if you buy this as a Liat helmet without the comms, it's £399. So there's about a £300 upgrade to get the comms. That's pretty consistent. It's actually quite cheap to add mesh communications to that level. So I think that is going to be interesting to see whether off-roaders adopt that in the way that Cardo think. One that I don't have with me, but I think is also interesting, again, it's technology, but it's the CHIGEE CG rear view mirror system. So this works in tandem with their SR1 radar detector. It's a device that you put on the back of the bike, and then you've got wires that come to the front of the bike, and it'll warn you if something's in your blind spot. They're not the first people to do that. There are a few options. Garmin have got a system like it. Interphones, smart displays have got something that warns you about something in your blind spot, but they seem to have quite a serious approach to it. And the mirrors are an upgrade accessory. So you replace your standard mirrors. You can choose whether you want round or whether you want angular. And then on the stalks for those mirrors, you've got amber lights that will illuminate if you've got something in your blind spot.
Well, they're actually one of our partners. So we've been testing it for a month or two. So I'd be really interested to see what you make of it if you get a chance to give it a go. We haven't published our video yet, but it's coming very, very soon. But I will say it's one of those things when you ride with it, you sort of rate it, but you really rate it, I think, when you jump on a bike that doesn't have it. And you start to realize how much you've been using it.
This, I think, is interesting in terms of a brand. So this is the CHIGEE Nucleus GTX boot, and it's one of 21 new CHIGEE models of boot that we've got on our site, and all of them are kind of urban style boots like this, so quite short and either more trainer-like or walking boot-like. And that seems to be something where they've really appreciated that they were way behind the game. So I associate CHIGEE with kind of early 2000s and people walking around bike shows with a pair of their old Vertebra boots that are just squeaking and making a hell of a row. There's been a huge change in this century, in the last 25 years, in terms of the boots that people want on a bike. I think in general kit, really, that people don't necessarily want to look like a motorcyclist. And I think that started out quite small and it's just got bigger and bigger and bigger, that people don't want to be marked out as like, oh yeah, there's the guy in the biker jacket or the biker boots. So I think CHIGEE really had to up their game, and they've done that. These are going to be an interesting addition to it because I think they kind of work in that market. Gore-Tex, £200, so not crazy money. Try getting a pair of Gore-Tex walking boots for that money. I think you'd be looking in the bargain basement. So I think I'm looking forward to seeing how people get on with these and see whether CHIGEE can kind of make themselves as famous now as they were probably a quarter of a century ago. The next one, this really, I would say, is eye candy. So this is the Supertech R10 Martinator Tie Edition, or as some people are calling it, the Martinator, because that's what he's got written on the back. So this is a replica of Jorge Martin's helmet that he wore in the 2014 Thai GP at Buriram, and the guys who work here absolutely adore this paint scheme, which is kind of based on Buddhist and Hindu motifs that he's got all over the helmet. And this guy this symbol is meant to be the remover of obstacles. So he did a pretty good job. When Jorge Martin wore this helmet, he finished second. So the only obstacle he couldn't remove was Paco Bagnaia. And this helmet comes out, so what, 2 years? 2 years after he wore it in the race, and this one is a crazy popular helmet, the SR10. I think Alpinestars is probably the only clothing brand who could launch a helmet brand and hit the ground running in the way they have. I think people really respect them for safety. I think their airbag work and all of the kit they've come up with over the years mean that people were going to adopt it, and it just looks so damn cool with that spoiler on the back.
Go on then, here's with the price.
£1,149, but you do get a spare visor and you do get some extra accessories in there. I think there's an extra spoiler in there as well, so we need to have a look in the bag, and you get an ever so posh hold-all to put it in. You'd think that price would be a barrier, but it's really not. People who want this helmet, and they will find the money for it. And the last bit that I wanted to talk about today, again, this is coming really soon, but it's a Krieger Guy Martin special edition on their R25 rucksack. So we worked out yesterday, it's 25 years this year since Krieger launched the original R25, and now we've got the Guy Martin special edition. Whether it's deliberately to mark that occasion, I'm not sure. But there's minimal changes to the bag itself. We've got his Skull and Spanners logo just above the pocket on the back of the bag, and then the front has kind of got this really subtle, quite cool etching of his number 8 logo on the surface that goes against your back. And that's the number 8 that he used in the 2010 TT. The 2010 TT didn't go all that well for him. It ended in quite a nasty fireball. But kind of 16 years on, we're making some good of that, and he's got that on that rucksack. It's a £10 upgrade over the price of the regular R25, and I think really it shows how popular Guy Martin is. I looked it up, and he's not raced professionally since 2017, so 9 years since he last raced a bike, and I think he's one of the few guys where you put his name on, you put his logo on, then he's really going to give people a sales bump. So it's interesting to see that one come out.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for a quick rattle around some of the best gear news. Of course, people can watch your more in-depth videos about some of these products on your own channels, so we'll link to that down below. And we'll catch up again soon.
Yeah, brilliant. Nice to speak to you, Rob.
Lovely stuff. I really enjoyed catching up with Tony and hearing the latest in the gear world. So if you enjoyed that section, let me know in the comments and we'll do it again maybe in a month's time. But now we're on to comment of the week, where I pick my favourite from the last episode, and then at the end of the month I pick my overall winner to get a break-free unit of their choice. Last time out we also looked at Moto GUCATI filing designs for a hybrid, a little bit like the BENDA 6-cylinder, and GGG Infolab commented, Moto GUCATI owner here, this image is pure nightmare fuel. I actually physically laughed a little bit about that one, so I'll give him the overall winner for June as well, and so we'll be in touch with details of how to claim your prize. Now, a few of you have been sending in your bikes since I asked for submissions last time round, and so this week's Ride of the Week has to be this one from Nicolas de la Bassetière. A great name and a lovely bike as well, with a custom Bonneville build, complete with some short pipes, some luggage as well, some lightweight wheels, and many more nice bits. In fact, he's actually flogging it in Lisbon, Portugal. So if you like the look of this one, get in the comments and see if you can catch his eye and maybe put in a cheeky offer. I do love seeing people's bikes. I've got a few more, in the works that people have sent in, but if you want yours included, you can send them to enquiries@motobob.cc and I'll try and fit them in. I've also been wanting to bring back Custom of the Week. We used to do this on the podcast with Tim, but it always threw up some interesting bikes. So here we go with this week's pick from Bike XIF, with a beautiful Harley Lowrider S Cafe Racer that we recently actually saw at the Bike Shed show in London. I had to show it again though, because I think the pictures are fantastic as well, and it just shows what can be done with a Harley if you go for a more original or innovative route than if you just went with the typical custom cruiser or tourer. Loads to see on this bike, top spec components, Rotobox carbon wheels, a bit of bespoke bodywork as well, and also a set of pipes that really do look like they could bust an eardrum or two. Anyway, a bit of a PSA for our bikers in the UK though. Visor Down report this week that Thames Valley Police have started to roll out some fairly stealthy speed camera bikes in order to pop up, they say, in locations where a traditional speed camera van might not be able to access or might not fit. And this isn't something completely new. I've seen, motorcycle officers with these little tripod things out and around here in the southwest as well. But it is worth a heads up that they're on the up, because of course they're quite a bit harder to spot. And so if you are in that area, might be one to keep your eyes peeled for. But over to Spain, and I think this might be even more controversial because there's a new law coming into place from October this year that will mean you'll need to be a bit more careful with your gear, either if you live there or if you visit. You see, wearing gloves is now mandatory on a bike if you're outside urban areas, and also closed-toe shoes are mandatory now on all roads, urban or not, and a violation, should you get caught, could land you with a €200 fine, as reported by motorcycles.news. It applies to tourists as well, so if you do travel there, then, if you're planning to go out in your shorts and flip-flops, you might want to think again. And so I'd love to know from you, is that too much nannying from the Spanish lawmakers, or is it actually quite sensible? I mean, I probably wouldn't go out on the bike in open-toe shoes anyway. Do let me know what you think down in the comments below. I'd also love to know what you think of the rest of this week's stories. I'll put a playlist on the screen as well from this week from our ABR coverage, a great event with lots of interesting things to see, so do catch up on those videos if you missed them. Hit subscribe for more of the latest motorcycle news and reviews right here on MOTOBOB. A massive thanks for watching today, and we'll see you in the next video.